Why do some of the most successful Christian men and women build extraordinary careers and even businesses, and yet they keep failing in love and relationships? How can someone deeply love God, lead teams, make brilliant decisions, and yet somehow repeatedly keep making the same mistakes in love? Is it possible that the same beliefs that are behind the tremendous success that they're enjoying in career and business could somehow be quietly sabotaging their ability to build intimacy and achieve healthy, wholesome relationships? Today, I want to tell you the story of a woman who helped me answer these questions. Let me tell you about Amaka. When Amaka first reached out to me, you could tell that without any doubt, she was very successful in her career. The people in the office depended on her for critical decision making. And she was proactive, the kind of person who had the natural instinct and always knew what to do to get the job done. But the problem was that there was one area of her life where she kept experiencing frustration and failure. And that area of her life was relationships. Amaka had been in 5 relationships, 5 different men. And yet each of those relationships had ended in the exact same way. Each of these men had not made the exact same statement, but they alluded to it. The 5th man, her most recent relationship, had said to her, "I feel like there's no emotional connection. I feel like sometimes I'm banging on the door of your heart, trying to ask you to let me in, and you keep it shut intentionally." Amaka was confused, somehow even enraged at the thought. And as she communicated with him, she tried to get him to understand that she had been there for him when he needed her advice. She was supportive financially and otherwise. She was trying to wrap her mind around what he meant by he didn't feel the emotional connection. They tried to salvage the relationship, but 3 months after, it just packed up. He went his way and she was back at square one. 5 different men, 5 failed relationships. And so here she was sharing with me her frustrations. Instead of asking what could have been wrong with each of these men, I asked what invisible belief could possibly be responsible for this pattern of the same outcome playing out in Amaka's life. You see, results, particularly repeat results, are rarely caused by external circumstances or the people that we are dating. Usually they are caused by beliefs that have been embedded deep in your subconscious. In order to help Amaka understand what belief was responsible for this repeat pattern in her relationships, I began to introduce to her a framework that today I call the reality formation framework. You see, the visible results in your life, in your relationships, are being caused by the invisible belief that is planted in the soil of your heart. We're looking at 6 key chain links in this process that I call the reality formation framework. It begins with your background that shapes the experiences that are creating your beliefs. Your belief is a feeling of certainty. It's a conclusion, a conviction you've come to based on past experiences. Then there's the 3rd chain, and that is your reasoning. You reason the way you do because you have formed a belief. Your belief is somehow like the glasses that you've put on that dictate the shade of how you perceive reality. And then your reasoning, of course, is controlling the way you feel when there are issues that have to do with relationships. Your feelings control your behavior, and your behavior produces your results. And this is what I introduced to Amaka to explain to her what was going on and to help her begin to identify what belief was responsible for these repeat outcomes in her relationships. In order to be able to use the reality formation framework to identify what belief was responsible for this pattern of failed relationships in Amaka's love life, I needed to have an understanding of her background. And so I asked Amaka, tell me a bit about your background growing up. She composed herself for a minute or two and then began to share with me about her parents' marriage. You see, when Amaka was 13 years old, one morning her father packed his belongings and left the marital home, never to come back into their lives again. Amaka had woken up that morning to the cries and sobbings of her mother coming from her bedroom. She had made her way to the door, called out to her mom several times, didn't get a response, so courageously had pushed the door open and stumbled into the room where there was no man in the room. Of course, her father was no longer there. He had left and her mother was in tears. For the next few months, Amaka would awaken to the cry and the sobbings of her mother. Eventually, Amaka tried to provide some sort of solace, even though she was a little girl. Amaka eventually discovered that her father had abandoned them to move in with another woman. And the repeat experience of being exposed to the pain and the heartache and the cries of her mother brought Amaka to the conclusion that men were never to be trusted. You see, it was this experience or these series of experiences that caused Amaka to form the belief that it was not safe to become vulnerable with any man. That no matter whatever relationship you were in, you had to protect yourself from the kind of heartbreak that her mother had experienced when she was growing up. And you see, it was this belief that brought about the reasoning that if men cannot be trusted, you have to protect yourself. And this was what she was doing in each of these 5 relationships that failed. Every time the man wanted more of an emotional connection or sought to know more about her upbringing and I wanted to know her for who she was, she would shut the door. Now that we had identified the old belief that no man could be trusted, what we did was that we created a new belief. Not every man is my father. You see, Amaka had assumed that and transposed her assumption that every man that she met had the propensity to what? Hurt her, break her heart, and that had sabotaged all her relationships. But this new belief, founded on the truth of God's word that not every man is her father, was the exact seed she needed to plant in her heart to produce the right way of thinking that would govern her feelings and then control her behavior correctly to foster emotional connections with whichever man that she would attract into her life and build the meaningful relationship that would ultimately lead to marriage. And over the next few weeks, what we did was we proceeded using the Beliefs Build Reality framework to plant, nurture, guard, and bring to a harvest the exact kind of behavior that produced that relationship in her life. And the good news today is they're about to get married. In a few weeks, they'll be married. And you might be thinking, what if she falls back in the same patterns? No, she won't. We know she won't because the behavior is the fruit. The belief is the seed that produces the root that commandeers what the fruit is. I would like to invite you to book a discovery call. You might be able to connect or resonate with this experience that Amaka went through. Maybe you see some of yourself in what happened to Amaka. Why not click the link below and book a discovery call? Let's spend 1 hour talking about how we can begin to change that, to change the results in your relationship. Or maybe you would prefer to join me in a live webinar. You can click the link in the description for that. I'm looking forward to having you on my next video. Thank you for being a part of this. Don't forget to subscribe and please like the video and share with someone you think that it would be of a blessing to. Thank you for watching this.